Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. I have been gradually working my way through every HeroQuest campaign, doing a deep dive into the story and each individual mission, to talk about what I think works, what doesn't work, how Zargon can make changes, and sometimes what I might have done differently if I was designing the campaigns myself. Of all the quest packs released at retail, the only one I haven't dived into yet is Mage of the Mirror. This is one of the expansions that was region locked back in the 90s. It was never sold at retail in Europe, so it was very exciting when Avalon Hill released their new edition, giving everyone a chance to play it. In the unofficially official quest order, this quest falls between the Frozen Horror and Rise of the Dreadmoon, and in fact, Dreadmoon was promoted as being a sort of continuation of Mage of the Mirror's plot, although I don't think that really panned out, and both quests feel very self-contained anyway. And overall, Mage of the Mirror is a good expansion. It gives you an alt-gender miniature for the elf hero, fleshes out the elf hero with new elf spells and unique elf equipment, has 3 solo missions and a 6-part group quest, includes a selection of cool new enemies including werewolves, and in the new edition you even get some thematic elven furniture to make your dungeons feel a bit snazzier. Those elves do love to show off their fancy style. I think simply for the elf upgrades, especially those spells, and the new enemies and furniture, this expansion is a solid addition to the product line. But what about the quest itself? How good is that? The plot is a fairly standard Saturday morning cartoon or 80s action movie deal. Mentor has summoned the elf hero because the young elven princess Melandriel has been kidnapped. Queen Terelia has received a ransom note from her evil sister Sinestra. And I have to say, if your parents are going to call you Sinestra, they have to expect you are going to grow up evil. Anyway, the note demands Terelia must abdicate and turn over her power to Sinestra in exchange for the princess. The queen needs an elven hero to infiltrate Sinestra's fortress, but first that hero is going to have to prove their worth in a series of challenges. So that's the setup, save the princess, and the stakes are threefold. First of all, we are trying to save the life of a small child. That's already enough incentive to get into hero mode. However, additionally, we are fighting to prevent the elven race from being subsumed into Zargon's forces, which would not only destroy the elven race, but also put the whole realm in danger, as Zargon would gain a huge military advantage. And that is solid enough storytelling. A kidnapping may not be original, but we are layering personal relatable stakes, saving the princess, with wider reaching world threatening stakes. Personally, I would have liked to see those stakes grow organically throughout the campaign. You start off trying to save a child, only later on discovering the implications of your failure on the political landscape. But this is fine. The quest line starts with the 3 solo quests, and solo quest here means one person controlling the elf versus a Zargon player or the app. There are no special rules for a true solo app plus experience. If you don't want to play the solo missions because you always play with a full group, for example, you can skip these missions entirely and go straight to mission 4, which is when the quest truly begins. However, if you do that, the heroes will be missing out on some decent loot, including a badass set of elven armour. So Zargon may want to seed the stuff they missed out on into later missions so they aren't disadvantaged. Quest 1 is called the Sovereign Sword Returns. Queen Terelia wants the elf to retrieve a family heirloom that was recently stolen. So it's a fetch quest. And for me, this falls into the same trap as the solo quests in the Frozen Horror. If you want to test a hero, create a test for them. Don't immediately charge them with an important task. And it must be an important task, as Zargon orchestrated the theft. He clearly wants the sword for something, so retrieving it must be important. It's not a game, it's a job for a full party of heroes. That narrative blip aside, a fetch quest is a natural choice for a test. Go here, get that, bring it back to prove you did. It's a straightforward way to get the ball rolling, and the mission doesn't do anything groundbreaking. Besides some frozen enemies that burst into life if the elf opens a trapped chest, the only thing of note about this dungeon is quite how much loot they can get. Through exploration, they can find an elixir of life and the elven bracers. And for completing the mission, they get the elven armour, for which there is no artifact card. Those 3 items are going to be very important later on, as Mage of the Mirror is one of the tougher expansions to get through, so Zargon should find other ways to kit out the elf if they decide to skip this mission. Should the elf recover the sword, they are sent on their second quest, on Sacred Ground. This time 2 of the Queen's attendants have been kidnapped and the elf has to get them back. Again, I don't like the idea of a real mission with real lives at stake being used as a way to test the elf. Does the Queen not really care about these attendants? She's playing games with their lives, and it doesn't exactly paint her in the best light. Besides, Zargon must have kidnapped the attendants for a reason, possibly because they have intimate knowledge of the Queen, so more effort should be made to recover them. This is another very simple mission, and the most interesting aspect is it's our first introduction to combat with wolves. There is a small narrative beat which poses an interesting question, but it never really goes anywhere. It's possible to find a room scattered with smashed jewellery and tatters of silk clothing. This gives the impression Zargon's troops have been searching for something that they believe was in the attendants' possession. However, nothing ever comes of this, and what could have been a tantalising hook for a more interesting plotline ends up being nothing more than a bit of set dressing. This mission also bungles the rescue objective. There is a single paragraph in the quest notes saying the attendants are in room D and must be escorted to the spiral staircase. However, there are no miniatures or tokens to represent the attendants, there are no rules for how to rescue them, and no rules for how they must be escorted back to the entrance. There's nothing. One of the joys of HeroQuest is how streamlined it is, but there's streamlined and then there's just forgetting to add bits. This feels like the latter. I do find it interesting that when the elf completes the first mission, retrieving a sword, the Queen gives them a suit of magical armour, but when they rescue her 2 attendants, she only gives them 150 gold pieces. It's nice to see how she values the lives of her people. I'm not convinced she's a good ruler. And as if to prove the point, Quest 3, the final solo mission, sees the elf entering a maze Terrelia has devised as a test. The maze is full of real monsters that, get this, she has promised to set free if they kill the elf. While I appreciate this feels more like a proper test than the previous missions, it really doesn't make me feel any better about serving this Queen. She's a loon. Regardless of the Queen's current mental state, into the maze the elf must go, looking for a gold MacGuffin in the form of a book. Strangely enough, there is another early event in this adventure that doesn't mean anything or go anywhere. The elf finds a note reading, "All is not as it seems." It's an ominous message, a hint perhaps that the Queen really isn't a benevolent ruler, or that perhaps the kidnapping of the princess is not all it seems to be. But no, like the jewellery and silk in the last mission, it doesn't really mean anything. As much as I appreciate flavour text and an attempt to make dungeons feel more alive and interesting, that flavour text really should add something to the mission, and that's twice now where it hasn't. However, complete this mission and Terrelia decides the elf is fit for the job, and the proper adventure can begin with Quest 4, the Elven Prospector. The Prospector has been kidnapped, which seems to be a popular pastime in the Elven realm. The heroes, all of them at last, need to rescue him because he knows what Lunarium is, which is something the heroes need. A fun thing in this particular mission is the use of wall tokens and the new portcullises to divide rooms into prison cells. The first of these cells holds 2 ogres who will break free if the heroes open the only other doorway out of the room. The second cell holds the Prospector. Unfortunately, Avalon Hill didn't include a miniature for the Prospector, just a cardboard token. However, if you have Jungles of Delthrak, one of the Dwarf Adventurer miniatures is a perfect fit. I have to say, the way in which the Prospector is handled in this quest is odd. I think the expectation would be that the heroes rescue the Prospector from his cell and then navigate to the exit while protecting him, maybe even having to flee while alarms sound, like a spin on the rescue of Sir Ragnar. However, that isn't the case. First, the heroes have to find a key to open the cell. Once they have done this, they return to the cell and let the Prospector out. One hero then places the Prospector token on their character sheet. They are personally escorting the Prospector, but in all other regards they act as normal. They aren't slowed down, they aren't weakened or distracted, they don't become a priority target for enemies, they just have a token. However, should that hero die, something really sucky happens. the Prospector is returned to his cell and the brass key to rescue him is returned to its original location. Effectively, the whole mission resets and the heroes are forced to get the key, rescue the Prospector and try again. Only this time while one of their companions is dead and gets all the enjoyment of sitting there watching for the next hour while the adventure continues without them. I would strongly suggest Zargon players don't do this. There is no need to drag the mission out. If the hero should die, I would place the Prospector on a space in that room or corridor where he will remain until a different hero picks him up. HeroQuest is always at its best when it's moving forwards, serving up new situations. Nobody wants an adventure to grind to a complete halt. Overall, while the idea behind this mission is fine, and I have no issues with the map layout besides a very grindy final room packed with high strength enemies, I really don't like the way the rescue is handled. I'm not a big fan of escort missions, we all know escort missions suck, but I would rather the Prospector was an active character on the board, someone we could see and interact with, someone the heroes could surround and protect, something tangible they can latch onto to strongly define their purpose. Nevertheless, if they complete the mission, the heroes will take the Prospector immediately to Quest 5, the Alchemist's Laboratory. The plan is to take him to the lab so he can identify the Lunarium. Generally, I feel this mission is a bit of a slog. There's only one way through, and it's a real gauntlet, with wolves, elves, ogres, stacks of dread warriors, and an obscene amount of traps in narrow corridors. It's the sort of design that feels like a healing potion check, a way to blitz player resources so they are pressed in later encounters. This mission also features our first real boss fight, with a high alchemist who has the ability to inflict the werewolf's curse on a hero. This is a new concept for Mage of the Mirror, and I think this is a great mechanism. Afflicted heroes roll 2d6 on their turn, and if they score 10 or more they turn into a mindless beast under Zargon's control for that turn. Some people may not appreciate a rule that cedes control of their hero to Zargon, but I think it's a really interesting threat. Something for the heroes to worry about other than simply dying. It's a fate worse than death that is going to cause all manner of issues for the whole team. And I love the uncertainty it creates. What plans can the heroes truly make when at any point one of them could turn into a slavering monster? How can they trust a companion who can't trust themselves? That aside, the most interesting element of this mission involves the Prospector. If the hero with his tokens should die, the Prospector is captured and moved to a prison that the heroes don't know about somewhere in this dungeon. While this is annoying as the heroes are going to have to search for him and also find a key to unlock his new cell, at least it isn't resetting all of the heroes' progress to this point, and it is an interesting problem to overcome that makes thematic sense. As a Zargon player, I would probably add some clues for the heroes to let them know they are on the right path. Occasionally throwing out a line such as, "There are signs of a struggle and footprints heading this way," is going to stop frustration setting in. The heroes may decide to try to complete the mission without the Prospector. If they do, they will eventually find a room full of bottles of silver liquid. One of them is Lunarium, but they won't know which one without the Prospector, so eventually they will realise they do need to rescue him. Quest 6 is Tormuk's Guests. It's another Rescue the Prisoners mission, but this time with a mind control twist. Tormuk, the evil necromancer, has cast a spell on 2 of Terrelia's bodyguards to make them fight on Sinestra's side. The heroes need to find them and break the spell. I do not like this mission, at least not from a narrative perspective. It saps all the pace out of the questline. The heroes have got the Lunarium, they are ready to attack Sinestra, but suddenly they are being sent on a side quest to rescue 2 elves. Those elves aren't even being held by Sinestra. Tormuk is holding them in another castle like a wannabe Mario boss. Surely this is a quest for some of Terrelia's soldiers. Why would she delay the rescue of her own daughter by sending the heroes? Stupidly, this narrative nonsense could have been easily avoided, as in this mission the heroes can find the ancient staff. This is an elvish artifact that reflects magical spells. It would make perfect sense for the heroes to go on a mission to find this powerful item, as it's just the sort of thing you would need when fighting an enemy like Sinestra. The kidnapped bodyguards could have been a subplot or side mission within this adventure. Perhaps they were the ones guarding the staff when it was stolen. Now they are under a spell to protect it for Tormuk. It almost writes itself. I have to say, the idea of good characters that have been brainwashed is excellent. Putting heroes in the situation where they have to fight an enemy that they know isn't evil, that they don't want to kill, but that they might have to kill, is fantastic storytelling. But the setup really isn't used to full effect in this adventure. In fact, the heroes can complete this quest without even rescuing the elves, as the winning condition is for the heroes to find the exit, and there is no requirement for the elves to be with the heroes when they do. It's even possible for the heroes to kill the brainwashed elves without consequences. Breaking the spell is actually quite a neat little mechanism, a memory game and a combat-based puzzle rolled into one. And really, combat puzzles, gimmick fights if you will, aren't something we see enough of in HeroQuest. In this particular case, the heroes are told by Mentor that the spell will be broken when the heroes are alone with the elves, and it's as simple as that. When the heroes encounter the elves will have some handlers with them and they will be hostile. But if the elves are ever the only enemies in the room with a hero, the spell is immediately broken and they become henchmen for the heroes for the remainder of this one mission. I like that, it's neat. The heroes are told at the beginning of the quest what they have to do, but will they remember that in the heat of battle? It's entirely possible they will get a bit reckless and kill the elves, a more barbarian-approved approach to breaking this kind of spell. And that's fair enough, but there should be something baked into the rules about this outcome. Really, there should be 3 outcomes with 3 rewards. 1. Break the spell and rescue at least one of the 2 elves. The heroes get something good, maybe an artifact, maybe some useful information about Sinestra's next move. 2. Break the spell, but both elves die. The heroes ultimately fail and get no reward, but Terelia is at least grateful that the elves were freed from the torment of the mind control spells. Or 3. The heroes kill the elves. Terelia is fuming, and there is some kind of negative consequences for the next quest. I actually quite like the idea that the heroes lose the support of the Queen, and then they have to prove themselves by completing the mission even after being banished. A second act low point for them to bounce back from that adds some more personal stakes. To put it another way, if you are going to send heroes on a mission to rescue people, there needs to be consequences for not rescuing them. And again, this whole situation could have been circumvented if the brainwashing of the elves was a subplot and the main aim of the mission was retrieving the ancient staff. So I don't like this quest. Let's move on to Quest 7, when the heroes attack Sinestra's castle at Glynis Fen. From here on out, it's a straightforward dungeon plunge. Get into the castle, reach the lower levels, free the girl, save the world, and then get down the Winchester for a nice cold pint and to wait for all of this to blow over.
How's that for a slice of fried gold?
Yeah, boy!
The mission itself is rather straightforward, although I should draw attention to the paths of death. Just look how the traps are arranged in some rooms, directly behind doorways and laid out in pathways connecting 2 doors. That is some trollish design right there. The most interesting thing is that werewolves are more prevalent here. They pop as wandering monsters, including as the result of triggering a wandering monster trap. There is a significantly increased risk of a hero being bitten, which can cause some real problems when you get into the tougher fights. It's a good idea to stock up on Wolfsbane. This mission also grants heroes an opportunity to find the Sky Orb, which blocks up to 4 mind damage. It's a decent artifact that comes with its own custom tokens, and I'm surprised it wasn't made the focal point of the quest. Quest 8 is the Gathering Storm. The proverbial has really hit the fan because Sinestra knows the heroes are in the castle and she is mobilizing all of her guards to hunt them down. There are wolves everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. Wolves. Thankfully, not werewolves. When the heroes first enter this dungeon, Zargon is supposed to warn them that their feet sink in the soggy ground and the air smells mouldy. And again, there isn't really any reason for this, other than to hint to the heroes that in the central chamber they will find some quicksand. I would have liked to have seen this idea of a boggy, unsafe environment expanded. We could have had a lot more environmental hazards or unique challenges for the heroes to overcome. Still, the quicksand room does present our first real set-piece encounter. The heroes battle a spell-casting gargoyle while trying not to fall into the quicksand as they jump across it. Should they end up in the sand, they must immediately discard 2 items or perish. It's a cool setup, and rather cruel, as the gargoyle has the command spell. I would be inclined to give heroes a second chance to survive. If they don't have 2 items to discard, they can instead sacrifice 2 body points for each item they don't have. That could still lead to them dying, but it feels more fair to give them that last gasp chance. Oh, and one last oddity about this mission. The heroes can find what is described as a bag of heroic brew. I'm assuming this was supposed to be a bottle, but maybe it was supposed to be a bag containing 1 bottle for each hero. Wing it as Zargon. If the heroes are pressed, give them some more brew. Should the heroes make it through Quest 8, they get to the grand finale, a double-sized quest that works really nicely because it divides the board in half. The heroes start on the right side of the map, where they must find a mirror that they can use their Lunarium on to create a doorway to the Realm of Reflection. I'll step you through this one because it's good fun. The heroes start at the stairs and they only have one way they can go. In room A they will find a brass key which they really need to take, and in room B they will find the mirror. If they stand next to the mirror with their Lunarium, it becomes a doorway, and when they step through they are teleported to Melandriel's prison cell in room G of the Realm of Reflection. The brass key will get them out of this cell, and if they don't have it, their only chance is to make a strength test, rolling less than their body points on 2 red dice to force the portcullis open. Melandriel, it should be noted, is represented by a token, and as she is only 5, we don't really have a decent miniature to represent her in the HeroQuest line. I suppose you could use the Warlock. Regardless, she doesn't move around the board. Her token is placed on a character sheet in the same way as the Prospector was previously. However, the rules don't specify what should happen to her if the hero escorting her dies. I would simply place her on the board where she remains until another hero gets to her, but it really should be something the rules make clear. Having rescued the princess, the heroes now need to escape the Realm of Reflection. This is achieved by accessing the trapdoor in room K, which is a tunnel leading back to room E on the right side of the board. And I do think it's weird the return journey is made through a tunnel. It seems to undo the importance of Lunarium. We've been told we needed Lunarium to get into the Realm of Reflection, but now we find out there are just regular tunnels leading to the same place. There really should have been another mirror for the sake of consistent internal logic. One thing I do like is that there is a short route to the trapdoor so the heroes can escape without a lot of trouble, but if they go that way, they will miss out on finding the Elven Bow of Vindication, which is sealed inside a magic mirror and requires Lunarium to recover. The bow only has 4 shots, but it kills any enemy with a single hit, even Sinestra, so the heroes are really going to benefit from finding it. After returning from the Realm of Reflection, which I've just realised sounds like the place they send the naughty kids at school, the heroes will eventually have to face Sinestra, and this will either be a tough fight or a cakewalk, depending on whether or not they have the bow. And then that's it. We are done. I think this last double mission is pretty clever. It's a densely packed adventure with loads going on, a unique way to travel between otherwise locked regions of the board, and a choice to go for an easy escape or a more arduous route with an incredibly powerful reward. Excellent stuff. And when the heroes are done, Mentor gives them a slap on the back and lets them know that peace is restored. Until it isn't in Rise of the Dreadmoon. Queen Terelia gives the heroes 2,000 gold, but then also yoinks the Bow of Vindication because it's far too powerful for the heroes to keep. The end. Overall, I do like Mage of the Mirror. The new enemies are good, I like having to fight Sinestra's elves, and the werewolf gimmick is neat and could be incorporated into homebrew gothic horror adventures. The new elven equipment and spells transform the elf class and make it one of the most exciting options in the game, and the miniatures are great. But the quest has issues. An obvious one is that much like Frozen Horror, it is designed to be a lot tougher, and sometimes that spike in difficulty manifests as room after room of drawn-out combats with really strong damage-soaking enemies. Additionally, the plot is a pretty straightforward rescue with no interesting twists, while the sudden need to go off and rescue 2 brainwashed bodyguards feels misplaced. In fact, the quest line leans far too heavily on the kidnapping trope. In just 9 missions, you rescue 2 attendants, 2 brainwashed elves, a prospector, and a princess. The campaign also lacks interesting set pieces. You don't get those moments where the heroes are being chased, or they have to puzzle their way out of a situation. The brainwashed elves are an interesting and potentially morally charged encounter, although it doesn't go far enough, and the quicksand room is a unique challenge, but there isn't much else that stands out. Finally, I love the idea of the Realm of Reflection, but felt more could have been done with it. Perhaps Sinestra has trapped her essence on the other side of the mirror, and until the heroes have destroyed it, she is invincible in the real world. Maybe there are mirrors all around her castle and the heroes have to smash each one to weaken her. Or maybe she could create dark reflections of herself that hunt the heroes in several of the adventures until the heroes find and break the mirrors the reflections have come from. In that way, she could be a recurring villain and feel more like an imposing threat. The seed of something much more interesting is there, and I think with a little work, a good Zargon player could really spice up this whole questline. Maybe, hopefully, some of my musings in this video will serve as a springboard for even more interesting ideas in your own games. But that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.